Journal entry: The Caribbean. When I turned 16, Angelo planned a Caribbean cruise vacation for my birthday. He said he had always wanted to go on a cruise, and when he told me what he had planned, I was ecstatic. In fact, I was so excited, I insisted we take a Latin dance class. It was fun, and Angelo was the perfect partner. I was sure his Italian blood gave him his rhythm. A couple of days before we were scheduled to leave, I had 3 girlfriends over to share some of my chocolate birthday cake, and they brought gifts. They were my best friends, and I really appreciated their friendship. Kimberly, Allison, and Denise were fellow ballet students, and they sometimes came over to put in a little extra practice with me, especially when there was an upcoming recital. While I was now finished with school, they were starting their junior year. When I passed my test, I had wondered if things would be awkward between us, since we would no longer have school in common. But it wasn't awkward at all, and they actually envied me for being done. We were so close, I didn't think anything would ever change between us. 2 days later, we flew to San Juan, Puerto Rico, and boarded a ship there. Angelo had gotten us suites next to each other. Since we would not sail until 10 that night, we put our carry-on bags in our room and went back off the ship. We walked across the street to a pharmacy and bought bottled water to take on the cruise. Since we planned to spend a couple of days in San Juan when we got back, we decided the sightseeing could wait, and we just went back to the ship. After putting the water in our rooms, we walked around the ship and got familiar with the layout before heading to the Lido deck to have dinner. Grabbing a burger and fries from the grill and a salad and dessert from a nearby buffet, we sat at one of the tables on the deck and ate. There was a live band playing island music. It was all so festive, I was positively giddy. Angelo glanced over at me and laughed. "Are you having a good time, Katusha?" "Definitely, and we haven't even left the port." He laughed again, taking it all in as well. "I wish we weren't leaving so late. I wanted to watch the deportation, but I guess we'll have plenty of other opportunities to do that." "I know," I said, "and just think, tomorrow we will wake up in St. Thomas. I'm so excited." "Really? I can't tell at all." I gave him my signature smirk, and he grinned. When we finished our meal, I grabbed his hand. "Let's go, Angelo. I want to go look in the shop windows." "Already making plans for my money, huh?" I smiled widely, and he chuckled. "Oh, all right, let's go." As we walked through the pool area, we passed by 2 boys that looked to be my age. They smiled, and I smiled back. One was tall, with short hair, red hair and freckles. The other, a little taller than me, with bleach blonde hair and dimples. They were the 2 same guys I had seen earlier when we were boarding. I glanced back at Angelo, and he shook his head, laughing. He had joked with me earlier about gaining a swarm of admirers on the cruise. His arched brow clearly said, "See, it's starting already." Truthfully, I really didn't see anything special about myself. At 4 foot 4 inches, I now had a woman body, toned by years of dance and martial arts. My hair was long, thick, and curly. I noticed guys staring every once in a while, but I still didn't think there was anything special about me. The ship shops would not be open until we were out at sea, so we leisurely browsed the merchandise in the windows. I made a mental note of the things I really wanted, knowing Angelo would buy them for me. He had always been the most giving person I knew. Later that evening, after our luggage was delivered and we had unpacked, we went out to our assigned muster station for the safety drill. Since the ship would be departing soon, we decided to sit out on deck and wait. Then the foghorn sounded, and we slowly sailed out. I knocked on Angelo's door bright and early the next morning. He was running the electric razor over his face when he opened the door. "Good morning, Tesserina. I will only be a moment." "That's okay. I know I'm early." I sat on the couch and waited while he put his sandals on. Angelo, your hair is still dripping wet. I grabbed a towel and gently dried it. He shrugged, glancing at the wet spots on his shirt. I loved his hair. It was thick and reached past his collar. I remembered Suzanne complaining about the length of his hair, and I was secretly glad he never cut it. He smiled. I was trying to hurry because I knew a certain young lady would be eager to go. Grinning, I kissed his cheek. Thank you. Okay, let's go. Chuckling at my impatience, he grabbed his wallet and room key, slipping his camera and passport into my tote bag. All right, let's go, Miss Adventure Seeker. We went to the buffet and ate a quick breakfast before heading down to the lower level to disembark. We started by taking an open-air tour bus around St. Thomas. It was a beautiful island, too incredible for words. As we rode through the narrow mountain roads, we snapped photos of the tropical plants and trees. The island people were very hospitable and waved as buses rolled by, making us all feel welcome and at home. The bus driver dropped us and a few others off in the historic district, agreeing to come back and pick us up in a while. We visited Fort Christian, the Historical Trust Museum, and the Emancipation Gardens, and toured the St. Thomas Synagogue, taking plenty of pictures along the way. When we approached the famous 99 steps, the brochure said it was actually 103 steps. I grinned, excitement filling me. At the top was another set of steps leading to Blackbeard's castle. Are you ready? I asked Angelo, and he chuckled. Lead the way, Tesora. When we started up the steps, we reached the top of the second set of steps, and we stood at the Danish watchtower known as Blackbeard's castle. I took pictures of the pirate statues as we toured the grounds, and then Angelo took photos of the view from the top of the tower. A tourist asked if we would like him to take our photo, and we said yes. We bought some t-shirts in the castle gift shop, including a pink one for Sylvia because it was her favorite color. Was it worth it? Angelo asked me as we made our way back down the steps. It was. I wrapped my arm around his. Thanks. You're welcome. We caught the tour bus back to the port, stopping for a moment to listen to some island music. Angelo put a few dollars in a donation can on the ground in front of the group. They gave us a wave of thanks as we walked away. We stopped by a few shops for more souvenirs before going back to the ship. We had dinner in the formal dining room, sharing a table with 6 other people. There were 2 couples and a mother and daughter who were seated next to us. We started out complete strangers, but we soon got to know each other a little. The woman sat next to Angelo. Her name was Cara, and she was a single mother. Her daughter Shaylee was my age. Cara was pretty, and Shaylee looked just like her. Shaylee and I talked quite a bit while the adults conversed around us. Since the next day would be a sea day, she and I made plans to spend some time together at Club O2, a club room where teens 15 to 17 participated in fun activities or just hung out. I was happy to have made a friend. After dinner, Angelo took me to the shop area, and though there were some things I wanted, I decided to wait until the sales before buying anything. Angelo hugged me and said he was proud of me for being frugal. I had always been that way and would much rather shop for bargains than pay full price for anything. After stopping by our rooms for a bit to freshen up, we went to watch a variety show. We ran into Cara and Shaylee and invited them to sit with us. Cara took a seat next to Angelo, and Shaylee sat by me so we could talk while waiting for the show to start. We discussed the activities the club crew had planned for our age group and were excited to go. Angelo and Cara also chatted until the show started. Just before the lights dimmed, Shaylee leaned over and whispered to me, "My mom thinks your dad is hot." I looked at her, and something immediately shifted inside me. an unfamiliar pain clenching my insides. Shaking my head slightly and swallowing hard, I gave her a small smile and turned my eyes to the stage. The magician performing was also a comedian. I had been excited because I love magic and comedy, and the combination was bound to be good. And he was good, but I couldn't get into it. I couldn't even laugh. "Are you okay?" Angelo whispered, squeezing my hand. I quickly grinned. "Yes, I'm good." "Are you sure?" I nodded, my smile widening, which took more effort than it should have. "I am, really." I noticed Angelo frequently glancing my way throughout the performance. I forced myself to laugh in the appropriate places, hoping I sounded genuine. Once, when I caught him looking at me, I wrapped my arm around his and rested my head on his shoulder, closing my eyes as he pressed a kiss to my brow. After the show, Angelo thanked Cara and Shaylee for sitting with us and wished them a good night. Shaylee told me she would see me tomorrow, but I wasn't looking forward to it as much as I had been earlier. When we reached our rooms, Angelo asked me again if I was okay. I had always been more He had always been more perceptive to my feelings than I wanted, and I could usually mask them well enough. So why not now? I told him I was just tired and hugged him, kissing his cheek. "Good night, Angelo. See you in the morning." "Good night, Tesserina." "I promise I'm fine. Promise me you won't worry." He smiled, cupping my cheek. "But that's my job, and you're so good at it." I smirked and he chuckled. "All right," he said. "See you in the morning." I stood in front of the balcony doors and watched the moon's light reflect off the ocean waves. The day had been perfect. How could I let one remark bring me down and spoil my evening? Everything had been fine until Shaylee leaned over during the show and said, "My mom thinks your dad is hot." Her words affected me deeply. I didn't like the idea of Cara being attracted to Angelo. Ever since Suzanne broke his heart, I'd felt protected of Angelo. I didn't want him to ever be hurt again, but I also knew he deserved to be happy. Still, it had just been the two of us for so long. I always felt that Angelo was mine alone, and I was not ready to share him with anyone else. I didn't know if I ever would be. What is wrong with me? I knew I needed to snap out of this and get over my selfishness. And I will, I vowed. I will be better tomorrow. Working at normal. After showering and readying myself for the day, I knelt and said my prayers. Then I sat on the bed for a moment, psyching myself up for the day. The rest of our vacation would be amazing. I was determined to make it amazing, which meant no more selfish thinking from me. Having given myself a sufficient pep talk, I grabbed my key and left my room. As soon as I knocked, the door opened. "Good morning," Angelo said, drawing me into a hug. "Good morning." I moved back and gifted him with a genuine smile, letting him know I was back to my normal self. "Are you ready?" "Just let me grab my room key." After breakfast and another jaunt around the ship, Angelo and I put on our swimsuits and went up to the pool. There were so many people, we couldn't really swim. After a few minutes of floating in one spot, we got out and went up to sit in the hot tub. It was vacant, so we had it all to ourselves. We stayed in for 15 minutes or so. Then we lay out and dried in the sun. As we were heading back to our rooms, we ran into Cara and Shaylee. I told Shaylee I would meet her at Club O2 after I changed. Since we were going to be hanging out for a while, Cara invited Angelo to go up and play a game of ping pong, and I quickly encouraged him to go. He needed to do something fun while I was out. When we got to Club O2, there was a group of teens participating in karaoke and another sitting around and talking. Since the latter group was mainly guys, Shaylee made a beeline toward their table, and I dutifully followed. They anxiously made room for us, and each person introduced himself. The two girls said hello, then went to join the karaoke group. With their departure, we were immediately made the center of attention. Shaylee reveled in their attention. I didn't. My mind was actually on another part of the ship with Angelo. I wondered if he was having fun with Kara. I wondered what they were talking about. I wondered if she was making him laugh. I wondered why I cared. Get a life, Ekaterina. The fact that my mind felt the need to scream this was a sure sign that there was definitely something wrong with me. It was the first of 2 formal dress nights. Angelo had finished dressing before me and was soon knocking on my door. I quickly opened it and rushed back to the sofa to put on my shoes. I can't believe you beat me, I said in a playful huff. I can't either. But then again, women always need more time when it comes to playing dress-up. You're right about that, I said, finally standing. He whistled. Wow, Bella, you look incredible. My face warmed, and I looked down at myself. I was wearing a long-sleeved black gown. The top had a mandarin collar with silver woven through the material. The skirt was flared silk that fell just below my knees. The 2-inch-heeled black sandals with rhinestone butterfly accents elevated my petite frame a little. I left my hair down, the black ringlets framing my face and shoulders. Because my lashes were so long and thick, I never used mascara, which shortened my makeup time. I only wore eyeliner, a hint of eyeshadow, and lip gloss. Maybe I should go and grab my can of mace to fend off the ravenous teenage wolves. Angelo, I laughed. You're crazy. We shall see. Well, you always look great. He was wearing a black suit with a deep blue dress shirt and a gray and blue silk paisley print tie. The blue shirt made the blue of his eyes even more vivid. I reached up and brushed the hair back from his forehead, softly touching the scar. I always did that. I knew Suzanne always made him feel self-conscious of it, and this was probably the reason he grew his hair out. But instead of the scar taking away from his attractiveness, it only added to it. Smiling up at him, I took his hand and we went to dinner. That night, Kara sat next to Angelo again. The skin-tight, low-cut red dress she wore hardly left anything to the imagination. Shaylee's dress was almost identical. Glancing at Angelo, I could read the disapproval in his expression, and my heart lightened. Finding a modest formal dress hadn't been easy, but I was glad I did. I watched Kara, keeping my expression blank. Angelo caught me staring, and I quickly smiled at him and started talking with Shaylee about the fun afternoon we had. Shaylee joked with me about the attention I attracted from the guys at the club. She called me stuck up for not giving them the time of day, to which I responded, I wasn't being snobby. I just had standards and taste. Then we both laughed. I watched Kara take a large gulp of her wine and scoot even closer to Angelo. She joked with him about his shuffleboard skills, placing a hand on his arm every now and then and on his leg once, which made my insides clench in anger. I suddenly wanted to slap her. I wanted to pull a hair from her roots. The violent thoughts were startling, and I quickly put myself in check. Angelo looked uncomfortable, and it was safe to say there would be no cruise ship match-up for him. Leaning toward me slightly, he draped an arm across the back of my chair, pressing a hand against my hair affectionately. I gave him a loving smile and continued bantering with Shaylee about the stalker boys, as we called them. After dinner, we all went to the atrium to listen to little live music until it was time for the comedy show. Angelo and I were looking forward to it. I could see there would be no need to invite Kara and Shaylee. They were inviting themselves. There was a brother duo performing in the atrium. One was on the guitar, the other on the keyboard, and their vocals were great. They were performing a set of classic pop songs. In the middle of the set, one of the brothers said, "Hey, we'd like to invite some daring soul to come up and help us out with our next song. It's an old classic and one I'm sure most of us are familiar with. So, do we have any takers?" The crowd stirred, but no one was moving toward the stage. "Come on, I know there's someone with a great voice. Who wants to give it a try?" I scanned the crowd again, wondering if anyone would be daring enough to go up. Riding a moment of courage, I released Angelo's hand and moved toward the stage. "Yes," the singer said. "I knew there was someone willing to help us out." He asked me my name and age and where I was from. Then he said, "Are you ready for this, Katia?" When I smiled and nodded, he said, "Okay, guys, we're going to do an Ike and Tina Turner tune. Katia, you know Proud Mary, right?" "Yes, I do." "All right, we've got the words here just in case you need them." "I'm good," I said. "Okay, guys, looks like we've got a little pro here. All right, Katia, we'll harmonize with you, but this is all you, so stretch your stuff, okay?" "Okay." Holding the mic, I looked out at Angelo's wide-eyed stare and gave him a cheeky grin. To say he was surprised was an understatement. Then the music started and I began to sing. Proud Mary had always been one of my favorite songs. The brothers' voices were soon soaring with mine, and the three of us blended in perfect harmony. All around the atrium, hands were clapping, bodies moving to the beat. I couldn't believe I was really on stage doing this. When we finished, the cheers and applause were thunderous, and the crowd begged for an encore. The two men praised me and asked me to sing another song. I agreed and whispered my song choice. They nodded, and I took a seat behind the unoccupied piano. One of the singers moved the mic by me and adjusted the height until it was perfect. They searched their tablets and found the sheet music to accompany me. I knew the song by heart and needed no sheet music. I performed the classical pop ballad, Broken Vow. Closing my eyes, I lost myself in the music. Only this time, as I sang it, I was driven by a new emotion I couldn't quite define. As I sang the final line, I opened my eyes, and again the hall rocked with applause. Both the men hugged me and thanked me for singing with them, and I received congratulating pats on the back as I moved through the crowd, making my way back to Angelo. I grinned as he swept me up in a big hug. "Well, you're just full of surprises, aren't you, Katusha? When did this new skill develop?" Drawing his head down, I whispered, "I took some online singing lessons to perfect my singing voice. I figured I'd surprise you one day." He chuckled. "Well, you definitely picked a fine time to do that." I laughed. "You were wonderful. I'm so proud of you." "Thank you." Cara and Shaylee told me how much they enjoyed my performance. I thanked them, and we made our way back up to the lounge, hoping there were still good seats available for the comedy show. "Amazing," Angelo kept murmuring as we walked. I just laughed, holding tightly to his hand.